Welcome back to the Turnout. I am your host, Aloy. Don't forget to check out usaaudiences.com for special event and movie screening invites. And today we're going to be doing the top 10 vampires from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. The show started off with one idea of what a vampire could be, but eventually expanded on the concept over the course of the series. This was a major part of the show's world building that appealed especially to me, because once you thought you knew everything, bam, here's something new. So today we're discussing the top 10 vampires from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. For this analysis, I'm using how cool they are, how different they are, how powerful they are, and just generally how much they contribute to the idea of vampires within the Buffyverse. If you like stuff like this, don't forget to hit like, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell notification so you always know when the Turnout releases a new video. On to the list. Number 10, Kakistos. Leader of the cult of Antimonth, Kakistos was presented to us in Season 3 of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and was a scary enemy if we saw him through Faith's eyes.
Faith.
Kakistos killed Faith's Watcher and came to Sunnydale to finish his job, leading his cult followers and showing a resistance to staking, which was a huge deal in Season 3.
I guess you need a bigger stake, Slayer.
Too bad they couldn't get their hands on another grenade launcher, right? He was only around for a few episodes, as most vampires are. But as a very old vampire, we got to see what immense power a clever vampire could wield by leading a cult. Number 9, the Turok-Han. In Season 7, the first unveiled his special souped-up vampires called the Turok-Han. These were vampires who were immune or resistant to almost everything the Slayer could throw at it, short of sunlight, which proved to still be their only true weakness. It took laying a trap, securing an area, and everything Buffy had to take on just a single Turok-Han, which I think shows just how powerful they are. At the same time, they were revealing to the audience what the demon who takes over a human's body actually is, without that human side to keep it in check. The Turok-Han is really awesome. Number 8, Darla. While her time on Buffy was short, Darla blossomed into an amazing antagonist on Angel. We learned more about Angel and Darla's history through her, and honestly I feel we got to see that vampires were not totally devoid of positive emotions. I feel she genuinely loved Angel, with a soul, without a soul. Their connection was powerful. And learning later on how great this character was, watching her appearance and dusting on Buffy Season 1 really doesn't do her justice.
I released you from this world once. I gave you eternal life. Now it's time for you to return the favor.
Number 7, Dracula. At the start of Season 5, we were introduced to Dracula in the Buffyverse, and it was amazing. He pulled out all his best tricks from mind control to turning to smoke, and the show made them impactful and also a little funny.
And you're sure this isn't just some fanboy thing? Because I fought more than a couple pimply, overweight vamps that called themselves Lestat.
Dracula is the essence of the old world vampire, which leads to his enchanting presence and celebrity, but he also owed Spike some money. So this showed us how some vampires can create legends about themselves, even in the modern day. Also, if you get the chance to read the Season 8 comics, Dracula is an amazing addition to that series. Number 6, Mr. Trick. Almost the exact opposite of Dracula, Mr. Trick is a modern vampire. One thing I loved about the character was, 1, he brought modern sensibilities to Buffy the Vampire Slayer, showing that vampires don't need to be stuck in the past when you live in the age of computers.
This town is very street, wired with fiber optics. See, we jack in a T3, 2,500 megs per, we have the whole world at our fingertips. All I'm saying is, we stay local, where the humans are jumping and the cotton is high, but we live global. I mean, you know, you get the hankering for the blood of a 15-year-old Filipina, and I'm on the net and she's here the next day. Express air.
And number 2, he added some much-needed representation on the show. So Mr. Trick was just cool. The way he talked and dressed added to that, but also his ability to turn his back on Kakistos, representing the old, and turning to the mayor, embracing the new. He showed how a sly modern vampire can survive.
There's a reason these vengeance crusades are out of style. The modern vampire, you see the big picture.
Number 5, Vampire Willow. A lot of actors on Buffy got their chance to don the game-face vampire makeup at some point in the show, but I don't think anybody did so with the same impact as Vampire Willow. Cordelia's trek in the Doppelgangland gave us an amazing character that was the exact opposite of the Willow we knew at the time.
Buffy, ooh, scary.
but was also a look at what can happen when Willow gives in to her dark side, which she finally does in season 6. The window into the future was great foreshadowing that vampire Willow gave us, but also she was evil in just the coolest of ways. Number 4, the Master. The Master was the first one to take on Buffy in season 1. What I love about the Master was that he was very close to Kakistos, having his own cult of vampires, and kind of a similar power level. But his delving into magic and his obsession with the Hellmouth made him much more interesting. His use of prophecy and omens, the control he had over the vampires he created, all of this shows us right up front the levels that vampires can ascend to. The Master became a favorite for me to see in flashbacks along the way as well. He was the big bad that started it all.
Luke,
Yes.
bring me something young.
Number 3, Spike. We all knew Spike would end up on the list at some point, and here he is at number 3. Spike is the picture of a vampire in his prime, and shows us that vampires aren't just monsters running around killing without reason. He actually developed a goal of hunting down and killing as many slayers as he could, because it wasn't about how many people he killed, but who he killed. He also retained his being a hopeless romantic when he became a vampire, which showed that even a rabid mad dog could be a lost puppy under the right circumstances. Much of Spike's story really served to round out what a vampire could be.
And what can I tell you, baby? I've always been bad.
Number 2, Angel. What could be said about Angel or Angelus that hasn't already been said? Played by David Boreanaz to perfection, Angel was a serial-killing, torturing, maniacal vampire whose story showed us what it means to have a soul. Sure, vampires are defined for us up front as soulless creatures, but that can mean a lot of things depending on what you think a soul represents. Seeing him with and without his soul gives us more context to the concept of a vampire, and seeing how a soul is kind of like a prison for vampires, it makes for some fantastic storytelling.
I never get tired of doing that.
Before we reveal our number 1, I just want to do one big shout out, one honorable mention to Harmony. She actually almost made the list, but the reason for her inclusion might surprise you. Throughout the entire run of Buffy, we see vampires spring from the grave equipped with instant killer instinct and a mastery of hand-to-hand combat. Harmony, however, seemed to be the exception to that rule, and showed us that sometimes even vampires are frickin' useless. And our number 1 vampire from Buffy the Vampire Slayer is Drusilla. I know, we were surprised too, but while we were going through the most impactful vampires, Drusilla just kept moving higher and higher on our list. Her inclusion gives us a glimpse into what happens when you take someone who already has powers of their own, torture them, and then turn them into a vampire dependent on you. This creates an antagonist who appears to be weak and small one moment.
Come on, love. You need to eat something to keep your strength up.
Only to have it all turn around when she chooses to unleash the real monster inside. She was simultaneously a victim and also one of the most badass enemies all in one, and she only excelled after leaving Spike, who fed into her codependency on him. Drusilla was a twice-made evil vampire, once by Angel's torture and mind manipulation, and then by a vampire spirit that consumed her soul. In my eyes, she deserves to be at the top of this list. But what do you think? Who's the best vampire in the Buffyverse? I really want to know your thoughts on this, because it took me a long time to come up with this list. But definitely share your thoughts on this down in the comments. Also, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and hit the bell. And hit us up on Twitter too. We'd love to talk with you more there. Otherwise, I have been your host, Aloy. This has been The Turnout. Thanks for showing up.